Phil Egan, how are you?
Good, yeah. United are going to win the league next season. Is that what we're saying?
It must feel
Phil's very optimistic about United, I think.
it's a fairly spectacular time to be a Manchester United fan, even if you take yesterday and microcosm, looking at Jose Mourinho and that Tottenham Hotspur team, and looking at how Solskjaer has got this United team playing.
Yeah, absolutely. It wouldn't have been lost on the United fans watching the Spurs game beforehand. Pedestrian, ball going sideways, just no spark, no creative spark, and certainly not down to a lack of creative players. But that's just the way Jose Mourinho is at the moment, and looks like yesterday's man. And then you think of when Solskjaer took over. You know, when he did replace Mourinho, obviously things weren't good. So Solskjaer coming in, obviously naturally just lifted the place. They went on that great run. They had that great win in Paris against PSG, but then they finished last season quite badly. Indifferent start to the season. You think back to January, they lose to Liverpool, then they lose to Burnley, and there's a lot of questions about Solskjaer. But then Bruno Fernandes is signed, and they haven't really looked back since. Unbeaten in 17 games in all competitions. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, look who they're beating," but okay, they beat Villa last night. They drew at Villa earlier in the season. They beat Bournemouth at the weekend. They somehow lost to them earlier in the season. These are teams that they couldn't. They beat Sheffield United comfortably since the restart. That's a team they drew at earlier in the season. So these are games that they struggled with earlier on in the campaign, but now they're making them very comfortable. And Bruno Fernandes obviously takes a lot of credit for that. Now you've got Paul Pogba, who was very effective last night, just kept the head down and did what he's meant to do. And now there's talk of him signing a new contract. Obviously, Mason Greenwood just looks sensational. The only thing is, they're obviously on this incredible run. It's going to end at some stage. It's how they react. What happens when they lose a game? Will it? Obviously, winning games breeds confidence. What will happen when they lose one? But it looks like, if you look at their fixtures, that Leicester game on the final day, it could be wrapped up before then.
Let's go back to Spurs just for a moment, Phil. Like, where does this get better for Jose Mourinho? If you are a sympathiser for the man, where is this going to take a turn? Because he's had his pre-season, he's had his few months to actually get stuck into the team, to actually really put his stamp on the set of players that he's been given. So that's half of it. The next thing then is going to be the transfer market. But there isn't any empirical evidence to suggest that Tottenham Hotspur are going to go out and spend big in the transfer market. The only way they do that is if they get a shed load of money for Harry Kane, or if they jump ship on Tanguy and Ndombele really soon. And I'm not sure if that's something that Tottenham are going to be prepared to do. I think Jose Mourinho's got a fairly bad track record of letting outstanding players slip through the cracks and not getting the most out of them. My hunch is that Ndombele will become that next player that Jose couldn't get the best out of and becomes a world-class talent with Paris Saint-Germain or wherever he goes. It just seems that they're kind of screwed, to be honest with you, and that Jose Mourinho, if you're looking at him from the hierarchy at Tottenham, it's hard to trust him fully.
I think if you're a Spurs fan, I don't even know what you can look forward to, because obviously fans that aren't Spurs fans, and they might like Jose Mourinho, they might think he's a bit dated. Probably one thing you can look forward to is that Amazon Prime documentary that's coming out, because that looks like it could be juicy enough, some of the things that have happened since he's taken over. But you think back to when he took over, Pochettino was already struggling. The form in 2019 wasn't good. They obviously got to a Champions League final, which papered over a lot of cracks, but they were losing a lot of games last season, towards the end of last season. But you look at the team that they put out yesterday, and there is some very talented attacking players, energetic players, that a coach that would have an attacking philosophy would get a better tune out of them. And Mourinho, that is not something he's able to do. His teams have always been based on being solid at the back, having really good individuals that will win games for you, but the base is always there with being solid at the back. And you think back to the first game since the restart, they got that goal ahead against United, but you just felt that you couldn't trust them to see it out 1-0, and that's pretty much where Spurs are. In terms of optimism, you mentioned Harry Kane there. Who's going to take Harry Kane? Because they're going to have to pay huge money for him. And where does he fit in? If you would ask me maybe 6 months ago, I said, do you know what, Harry Kane could be an option for Manchester United. But now I think the emergence of Mason Greenwood, they would think, would there be the necessity to splash out huge money on someone like Harry Kane when you've got Mason Greenwood, who in turn, his emergence has also given Anthony Martial a bit of a kick up the backside as well.
Well, is that the comparison not between Martial and Kane rather than Greenwood and Kane? The comparison I would have thought is between Greenwood and Sancho at this point. And like,
No,
I
think
so.
No, I think Greenwood is so talented. He can play anywhere in that front three.
You think he could lead the line?
Absolutely. Obviously, he's only 18, so it's a lot of pressure, and it's not a bad thing that he's playing out wide. But I don't think necessarily if United should just forget about Jadon Sancho. If they can get him, go and get him, because he's going to improve the team. He's going to improve the squad because, at the moment, we saw just before the lockdown, United had a few injuries and, they weren't as fluent as they are now. But it's all about building a squad. And especially if this rule comes in where you can use 5 substitutes next season as well, that if you can empty the bench with more attacking talent, then you're going to be at a huge advantage compared to other teams around you.
Got a comment in here from Matt asking you, Phil, do you think Martial will outscore Timo Werner next season?
Oof. I don't. Yeah, that's a good one, because I'm not sure where Chelsea are going to play Werner. Obviously, haven't been convinced by Tammy Abraham this season. Giroud has come in and he's done okay. So does that suggest that Timo Werner is going to come in as their front main man, or are they going to play him out as a wide left player? But it looks like Christian Pulisic is going to play in that position. So if you're putting Timo Werner in a central role, then I'd imagine he's going to score. I'd be surprised if he didn't score 20 league goals next season. So I would be leaning towards Werner at the moment.
Let's get into Monday's headlines today. Phil, this is where you become a pun master, and it's where you gaze into your crystal ball and tell us what is going to happen. Our first headline today is "We are better than you," are with no E at the end. I'm not sure, like you've taken a bit of artistic license there, Phil, I kind of like it. Arsenal to edge it against Spurs is the sub-headline. Talk us through this headline.
Yeah, this can work in terms of R can be Arteta or it can be Arsenal.
Very good.
I suppose if I have to explain it, maybe it's not great.
I would have thought "we are better than you," Phil, would have been a far better.
Yeah, but this is a family show, right?
Fair point.
Are we allowed to say that? Well, you've clearly said it now, so I mean, there's a free pass there. But I think that, do you know what? I think Arsenal, there's a lot more optimism if you're an Arsenal fan, because you have that younger, progressive coach who has a plan. And Mourinho might well get a result against Arsenal at the weekend, whether it's a 1-1 draw, which would be the safe option. But coming out of that game, I think you'd still have more optimism if you're an Arsenal fan. Obviously, they started the restart very shakily. David Luiz, the little cameo against Man City. But since then, he's gone 3 at the back. Granit Xhaka has obviously come back in as well after going off in that game against City with an injury. And there's plenty to be optimistic about, because Arsenal have young players and they have a plan. They have a manager who knows what he wants to do. Whereas you look at Tottenham and we don't really know what they're about. Whereas under Pochettino, you knew that they were trying to press and they were trying to play a high line, which I still think they have the players to do that, but they just don't have the coach that can implement that.
Yeah. I can easily see what you just suggested there happening, that Jose Mourinho snatches this, or it's a 1-1 draw and they have a chance to win the game or whatever, and then Jose Mourinho will come out and he will say that's the conversation over, I am a better manager than Mikel Arteta, and this sort of short-termism will be shown up. I can easily see that happen on Sunday. We are better than you. That is headline 1. Headline 2 here is pretty self-explanatory. Canaries top flight cut short. Very good.
I think this is going to be the weekend Norwich get relegated. And I think we all picked Norwich to get relegated at the start of the season. It's no surprise. I suppose what is a surprise is some of the results they had. If you think back to earlier in the season, the fact that they beat Manchester City, they've obviously beaten Leicester as well this season. And, they had a decent cup run as well. They knocked Spurs out and they pushed United all the way in extra time. But the plan, I think, for Norwich was get up. Obviously, don't invest heavily in the squad. Basically, don't put yourself in financial, trouble, and then go back down. And maybe when they come back up, they'll be a bit stronger. I don't know if that will be the case now. I don't know how COVID-19 has affected that plan for them, because we saw with Burnley. Burnley are the example where under Sean Dyche, they came up, didn't really invest that heavily, went down to the Championship. They had money then. They signed Andre Gray. They got back up the next season, and they've been a Premier League club ever since. So was that what Norwich were trying to do? I don't know if COVID-19 has maybe affected that, and will they have to get rid of a few more players than they wanted?
It seems like a fairly sensible plan that if you can coexist between the Championship and the Premier League every couple of seasons, you should do it. The danger is if you start plummeting completely. But is that always due to overspending, or can it happen when you try to tread that line as well?
Well, you look at the teams that came up. So Sheffield United, apart from the odd player that they got, they didn't really change much from last season. Aston Villa completely changed. We talked about Villa at the start of the season. Were they doing a Fulham? And it turns out they were. They signed loads of players, and it pretty much looks like they're going to go down. There's nothing to suggest, watching Villa last night with 4 games to play, that they can turn this around.
Yeah. Last headline, Chelsea find it tough to cut through the blades. So Chelsea going to get beaten, or is it going to be a draw?
I think it could be a frustrating one. I watched the Sheffield United Wolves game, 2 very well coached teams, and obviously John Egan comes up with the late goal. But I think Jack O'Connell back is a big plus for Sheffield United. They're just so well drilled, so well organised that they have a bit of their confidence back. They obviously had a sluggish start to the restart. Now we don't know if that goal against Villa had counted, the one that they had incorrectly ruled out, would things have been different. But I think just the Spurs win seems to have reignited them, and they were very hard to break down for Wolves. And I thought they did a really good job on Adama Traore. So I'd imagine what they're going to do against Chelsea is basically sit in, that 3 becomes a 5. And then when they get a chance to attack, Chelsea do leave spaces at the back. So, it's going to be a tight one. And, Chelsea need to get this win. If you look at their fixtures, they've obviously got a trip to Anfield to come, and they also have Wolves on the final day of the season. So they really need to get this done, because you wouldn't be too confident they're going to go to Anfield and win. Maybe they could get a draw, but they need to get the points. Obviously, Sheffield United still have the chance of European football. So that's definitely one of the standout games of the weekend in terms of the effect it'll have on the top 4 race and the European spots as well.
Phil, just before we let you off your other specialist topic, obviously boxing, the big fight confirmed in the last 24 hours, Katie Taylor and Delphine Pursoon going at it again, all the titles back on the line. It's part of this fight club, I think, on Eddie Hearn's estate in Essex, by all accounts, next month. Yeah. So she's not, Katie Taylor is, I mean, if ever it was, it can never be put against her that she hasn't risked everything. She's very much doing that here. The last one was obviously so tight.
Yeah, I mean, from Madison Square Garden to Eddie Hearn's garden, it's going to be a great fight. And I think Katie Taylor, when she went pro, the message was she wants to fight the best, she wants to be the best, she wants to fight the best. And it was a great fight first time. And at the end, Katie was hanging on because she got into a war with Delphine Pursoon. When I see Katie Taylor fight the way she did against Linda Datu, where she just obviously was fighting somebody that was bigger than her, but she just fought on the outside, got in and out with her flurries. That's what I want to see. She's a better boxer than Delphine Pursoon. Now, I'm wondering, she's obviously been training a lot, and we know she's a dedicated trainer. I hope she hasn't overtrained if that's possible, because she would have had her sights on that Amanda Serrano fight. Now, because she's fought Pursoon, it's not as if she's going to have to do much homework on her, but I definitely would like to see a change in how she approaches the fight. See, unfortunately for Katie Taylor is when she gets into these fights, she can outbox any of them. No, there's no doubt about it. But sometimes she gets dragged into these wars, and that is the concern, because Pursoon is bigger, she's strong, and look, we don't know what would have happened if there was a few seconds or a few minutes left in the first fight in June of last year. But it's certainly, the indication was Pursoon was pushing and Katie Taylor was hanging on a little bit. So Katie Taylor will be looking to put that right when they meet. And yeah, I can't wait for it. I think out of all the fights that have been announced since the lockdown, this is definitely the best one.
What's the setup in the garden going to be like?
I'd imagine it's, I don't know what they're going to do in terms of crowd noise, because are we going to have something similar to what we see with amateur boxing, where you can hear absolutely everything?
Well, sorry,
I
thought you were making I thought that was a point in jest, because we wouldn't ordinarily be conditioned to thinking about big crowds in a back garden. But what you're saying is actually it should cover up the reality of it. But like if you watch the UFC, I mean, it's actually a far more visceral sport, and it's like way more. It taps way more into your senses with no crowd noises whatsoever. I would say that they should just totally leave it dry and no crowd noises at all.
Yeah, well, one thing, if you're, if you want to see how the best are the best and you want to see what kind of direction they get from the corners, that's one thing that we get to see now. You get to hear absolutely everything, and that's fascinating. And that, I suppose, watching the Taylor Pursoon rematch, we'll see exactly what the instruction is from Ross Enema. And obviously he has a message that he sends Katie Taylor out to do, but sometimes it doesn't go according to plan. And I always judge the best coaches on when things are starting to go a little bit awry, what they can do to tweak things. And that's where they earn their money. Just sometimes it can be a small little thing. Maybe a fighter loses a little bit of focus after a few rounds where they think this is quite comfortable, then they just fall into that comfort zone, and then it's up to the trainer to get them out of it. And that's one thing that we're going to see a lot of.
Phil, good stuff. Enjoy the weekend's football.